What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2. And while, as y'all know, it is Wednesday, which means the new summit is now live, it's kind of insane that we're in the second week of episode 2. I'm also wondering what we're actually going to have after this update. And of course, Motorfest is obviously right around the corner, but nonetheless, guys, the Champions Battle is going to be out now with the Proto Concept Spear Racing. And then in silver, we have the legendary half set boosted for the monster trucks, which I would say having a Nitrochemist set is always going to be a plus, so I would recommend going after that one. But moving over to the next summit, Detroit Tour is going to have the arena tire, which I'm kind of digging this one. I can't wait to see how this is actually going to look on some of the cars. And then in gold, guys, we have a legendary half set Nitrochemist set for the Alpha GP vehicles. I would probably say this is going to be pretty dang important considering we do have the new Alpha GP cars. I would highly recommend going after this one as well. And then jumping into this summit, guys, it looks like it will be a nice mix of events. We're going to have 2 street races with a hovercraft event as well. It's always going to be kind of odd to see one of those pop up. Then, of course, I would say this Alpha GP event is probably going to be one of the new races. And then, of course, we also have a drag race and or a hypercar mixed with an Alpha GP event. So I would say that summit's going to be pretty dang fun. And then moving over to the next summit is going to be the Ghost Road, which brings us the Race Truck Ghost Recon Edition. I would probably say, guys, if you are a fan of the Raptor, you are definitely going to want this truck if you did miss it last time. I do know this thing's also pretty dang rare compared to some of the other cars as well, so this summit's definitely going to be insanely fun to see this thing return. Then in gold we have the inner black tire, which is kind of eh. And then in silver we have a legendary half set boosted for the street cars, which having followers and or pure on a fame magnet set's actually going to be pretty dang good. And I normally would run like bucks on there, but I would say pure is not a bad thing. That way you actually do have a nitrous increase and or helpful with that. So it's probably going to be pretty dang good if you guys are farming events. And then moving over to the next summit, guys, best of the USST next. And when looking at the cover image, guys, you're probably going to notice Alpha GP vehicles with some touring cars. I also spot a rally vehicle in there plus a street car in the front, so I really can't wait to see what that one's going to be about there. Then in gold we have the Red Bull RB13, which if you guys do own these vehicles similar to the tire here, you're also going to get the money back for that, which is always a nice plus, especially on an Alpha GP vehicle. Then finally in Platinum, we have the Evolution tire, which does look kind of interesting. I would probably say a lot of players are most likely not the biggest fans of the tires, but at least some of them honestly do look pretty cool, and so far episode 2 is looking pretty insane. And then moving over to the summit here, guys, starting off with the first event is going to be a Speedtrap. So for this one, I actually decided to use the Corvette Stingray. I know this is probably going to be slightly shocking, but with this one, guys, you can get well over 400 miles per hour. It's also going to depend on how you actually do reach the checkpoint on this one, mainly because it's going to be insanely close to a turn. So for this, I managed to get around 374, but you also don't need to go too insane on this one, mainly because it's going to be in a pretty weird location. I feel like a lot of players are most likely not going to want to deal with this one. I do feel like, guys, the Stingray is by far going to be the best option, pretty much by a mile compared to the other drag cars. But moving over to the next skill is going to be a slalom on a racetrack. So if you guys have a score breaker set, you can basically use any of the vehicle classes of your choice. I actually decided to run a touring bike, which is probably going to be one of the slower vehicles. I would probably say most of the players are most likely going to use a hypercar, but if you guys actually do want to run something like a touring vehicle, you can still easily get around the same score as those hypercars as well. So it really does depend which vehicle you guys would like to use. And then moving over to the last skill, guys, is going to be an escape. And for this one, I would highly recommend using a hypercar. I actually decided to run the Regera, which seemed to do a very good job. I also do want to mention, guys, you do not have to get over 100,000 yards to do good on this one. I would probably say like 16,000 yards or so would probably get you around 150 plus K. I actually decided to turn around 21,000 yards. I really did not see a point of going farther than that because I still got 156K on this one. But moving over to the next event is going to be a US Speed Tour event. aka one of the US City races that are actually new, and you also get to drive the new Spyker C8 as well, which surprisingly was not a bad car on this one. I actually found this car to handle pretty nicely, plus it's also pretty dang fast. If you guys are running manual, I would definitely recommend downshifting a bit around the corners. That definitely helped tremendously with coming out of the corners with more speed as well. But moving over to the next event, guys, is going to be one of the new Alpha GP races. You also get to use one of the new Alpha GP cars as well, which is the Concept Glow Motorsport. Funnily enough, when testing out this car before, I honestly was not a big fan of it. But using this thing on this new event, I actually do like how this car does perform. I would probably say, guys, these new Alpha GP cars are probably going to be performing the best on these new tracks. So if you were to use some of these new Alpha GP vehicles on the older and or regular Alpha GP races, I would probably say you're not going to see the best overall performance from these cars. And then moving over to the next Alpha GP race, guys, you also get to use one of the new cars as well. And this one actually has like a turbine on the back of it. It honestly does look pretty awesome. For this event, guys, I would also recommend being an automatic. This can also go for the other Alpha GP race as well, but of course I use manual. But on this one, I actually did put the vehicle in automatic because it did seem to make the car a bit faster. I would definitely recommend doing that for this event, but I am liking these new events so far. The tracks are honestly insanely fun to do, but moving over to the next event though is going to be a rally raid race. And for this one, you get to drive the Porsche 959 Raid, which surprisingly is actually a pretty good rally raid car. I do know a lot of players actually enjoy running this vehicle on many summits. I normally do use the Ram, which the Porsche is definitely going to be faster. One thing I'm not the biggest fan of though is going to be this car's handling, which I'm sure a lot of players are probably going to notice on this event. But moving over to the next event though, guys, is probably going to be the most annoying race in this entire summit. It's going to be a rally raid event called Portfoliage. I do have a feeling this one's probably going to make a lot of players rage because the route on this one basically sends you down multiple mountains, and if you mess up just a little bit, you're basically going to run into some rocks, and or if you go too fast in some areas, you're basically going to be completely annihilated. So I really do think a lot of players aren't going to like this one. And of course, with me picking some weird vehicles, I actually decided to run the Pontiac, which to my surprise is probably not going to be the best vehicle, but I would also say not the worst either. If I had to guess, most of the players are probably going to be running the Beetle and or something like the Raptor Enforcer unit as well, but overall, guys, I do feel like this event's going to be insanely annoying. But moving over to the final event though, you get to use a Rallycross car in a street race, which is actually going to be insanely fun because we normally don't get to do these. And if I'm being honest, guys, I would once again say the Ford Fiesta is not going to be the best vehicle here. I would actually use something like the Lancer and or the Escalade. Do keep in mind though, all three of these vehicles I did mention have the exact same top speed, which is going to be around 190 miles per hour, but I would say the Lancer and or the Escalade's probably going to handle a lot better than the Fiesta, but overall you can still run this car and still get a decent score. This summit, guys, is honestly going to be pretty dang fun despite some of these events being kind of annoying. I would probably say this Escape and or the Rally Raid event are most likely going to make a lot of players turn this game off for a little bit. I really do think this Rally Raid event is insanely annoying, so definitely take your time on that one, guys, and don't get too frustrated, because going down the mountain with one of these Rally Raid vehicles that don't handle the bumps all that great is obviously going to be one heck of a nightmare. But if you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this.
you.